We demand baseball as well. We demand it. I don't know if we're going to get it. My buddy from ESPN who had a nice scoop yesterday, Karl Ravech, joining me back here on the show. How you been, Karl?
I'm good, Rich. And I know now if I need a good attorney, Rich Eisen is the guy I'm calling.
Hey, Karl, man, that lockout, I got a Tulane law sports degree conferred upon me by Gabe Feldman. Unfortunately, he did not sign it, and I did not notice that until after I left his presence, so I think I still have an unsigned degree somewhere. But that lockout, man, I learned a lot about labor law, and unfortunately, it seems to be I'm putting it into practice talking about baseball too much lately, Karl.
Well, every time, and I tend to look at what's going on currently differently than I would a labor negotiation, and yet this is dissolved into a labor negotiation as opposed to a way to get your butts back on the baseball field and have the owners have baseball being played again. It has literally become a CBA conversation. The CBA doesn't expire until 2021. This should be solely about getting back on the field during a pandemic and everybody realizing we're going to lose some money in all of it. We're still going to get paid a hell of a lot of money, but we're going to lose money. And as owners, we're going to have to pay money, and we're going to lose money. That seems to have been lost, Rich, along the way, and that is labor law. You got to remember, as we romanticize about the Yankees and the Mets and the Cardinals and Cubs and Dodgers and Angels, there's no romantics involved in the game at this level. This is a business. It's about what do I got to get and how much am I going to pay. And for those who sit there and say, can't they just, and why don't they just, and don't they understand, the simple answer is no. It has nothing to do with any of the things that we would wish it would have to do with.
So how do we change that, Karl? Because we've already, based on, as John Heyman, our colleague at MLB Network, pointed out, the new proposal has already moved opening day from July 4th to July 10th. We've already lost a week on that calendar. And I know nobody really wants to play into November for many reasons, weather or if the regular influenza season hits when COVID-19 might spike again. That's the last thing you want to do is be blowing into your hand off the mound on November the 3rd and putting your hand on a baseball and putting it into play. So how do we change all this, Karl?
We change it, Rich, by one side recognizing that they have an incredible opportunity. While they're tying all this crap together with the 2021 CBA, recognize that this is a unique situation in our country's history. One of the sides has an opportunity to say, you know what? We do actually recognize what's going on. We do understand that baseball would be important for people as a diversion from all that's going on. We get the idea. They want to see us back on the field and on their televisions and on their iPads and phones and whatever. We understand that. So as a result, we are really going to bite the bullet on this one, and we're going to pay the players a prorated salary for 70 games. Or we're the players, and we're going to take a prorated 80% salary for 70 games, whatever it might be. And while we continuously try to endear the public to our side, the best way to do that now is to say, you know what, we actually do want to listen to what you folks are saying and not just make this about how much we get and how much we spend, but recognize there's a value in coming back. And we will ingratiate you to, if this is important, and it seems to be, our side when it's time to negotiate a new CBA. And if one of these sides is boy enough to become a man in this situation, we'll have a longer season. If not, we'll play 48 games.
What would be the problem with playing 48 games, Karl? Lay that one out for me.
I don't, honestly, Rich, I've always looked at this as an opportunity. I think that however many games there are, this is just me. This is not speaking for anybody but me.
Yep.
I looked at this as an opportunity. Get back on the field. If you want, devise a tournament. The concept of this being remotely considered a season or anything that would have to do with any record books, forget it. Not part of the deal. This is a unique opportunity. Go and devise some type of regular season with a great tournament to get a postseason. I don't even care if you call it a World Series winner. Call it something else. But you had an opportunity to be back on the field before others. You had an opportunity to make this unique and memorable. You had an opportunity opportunity to experiment, and yet you're mired in arguments you had in 1981 and 1994. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and it's a blown opportunity. So I think the 48, because of the acrimony, Rich, it feels like you've agreed to go on a date with someone you don't like, and it's not going to go any further. You're entering into a 48-game season with a whole heck of a lot of bitterness, not only in your own camps, but a bunch of fans who realize you two can't get along. Why would I invest in 48 games when you've told me you're not even invested in it? You're so caught up in your own fights. So I think that's what the problem with 48 is. It's a resignation to an agreement that was made in March, and more proof. We couldn't figure out a way to give you guys, 70 to 85 regular season games. We couldn't do it. So, sorry, here. You know what? We didn't have cheese or sauce on the pizza, but we got some bread. Enjoy the bread.
Enjoy the bread, Karl Ravech. And I guess just to continue on the whole dating analogy, we need somebody to say it's not you, it's me, and really mean it. And come to the table,
exactly.
Right? And really mean it. It's not you, it's me. Who's that person going to be? The commissioner? Or is it going to be? Tony Clark? Is it Boris? I'm serious. Let's brass tacks it, hash it all out about what really does need to happen and who's got to be the one to move here. Karl, not to put you in too much of a spot, but.
No, that's okay. If I were to handicap that, and I'm not sure, Rich, any one of those three you just mentioned would do it, because I think the commissioner answers to owners, and when you have to answer to somebody and you're not making the call, similar with the union, you're answering to all the players. If I were to handicap it and somebody had to, just given where we're at, I would think it would be the commissioner, only because he has historically, and since we've had labor peace, been in the middle of it all. I think he prefers a deal. I think he prefers a deal that benefits the owners, but I think in the end, he prefers a deal versus this 48-game idea. I'm not sure that Scott does, and again, if they were on the other end of this call, they'd say that's bull, and of course we prefer a deal, but it's got to be fair for the players. And I think the commissioner is more in a position to make a deal and say, guys, here's the deal. I'm ready to do this. I think it's important. We're losing $4 billion, whatever it might be. And in other years, this is a multi-billion dollar industry. We'll make it back. And I don't know that anybody would blame the side that does that in the next real CBA negotiation to side with them and say, look, they took one for the team. You're not getting any hometown discounts the next time. I would think if I were handicapping it, it would be Rob, but I'm not holding out hope that anybody's doing it.
Well, I heard the math that you used before as an example, and you said 80% of a prorated salary. So again, you prorate for 70 games, and then you take 20% off that, and that's what the players would make. But that's still 20% less than the 100% that they say that they negotiated in March. And that's my concern here, Karl, that clearly that had there been a collective bargaining agreement already signed, like the NFL was fortunate to have, maybe this acrimony wouldn't be happening, but we are here. My concern is that if the players keep saying, hey, March is March, and we don't care what's happening now because it's March, and you said yes in March, and we said yes in March, and it doesn't matter when, we're sticking with March, that if the owners begin to think that they're negotiating against themselves, they'll walk. That's my concern. If they think that they don't have a partner across the way that's really negotiating.
It's possible. I don't think that the commissioner would allow that, because I don't think, having been through what he's been through in '94, and the right-hand man is that he, on his watch, would want the game to stop. I don't think he's going to allow it. I think there's going to be baseball. To your point about the March agreement, and I do believe that this was subsequently discussed amongst the players and Tony, I'm not certain that they recognized the March agreement does stipulate, and most labor lawyers would tell you that March agreement does allow for a negotiation if the games are going to be played in front of empty stands. So while there was 100% of a prorated salary, there is a clause in there which, if you read it, and most labor lawyers will tell you, it says the commissioner has the right to renegotiate with the players on a potential concession on salary if we're playing in front of empty stands. We know we're doing that, especially to start. So I think that your argument would probably, again, I'm not a labor lawyer, I know you are, but I think would lose in court because there is that stipulation in front of nobody. The 100% prorated doesn't really stand. We have the right to go back and talk about concessions on that.
Were you on SportsCenter yet when there was that strike? When there was that? Were you there?
God,
you were there.
I was chasing owners around streets in New York and Toronto. Paul Beeston ducking in and out of buildings. Bud Selig not wanting to talk about anything. A guy named Richard Ravech who was representing one of the sides who everyone thought was associated or related to me, which wasn't the case. Yeah, none of it's ever fun. And that's why, those of us that are intimately involved with this sport and not the NFL like you are, you're up all night, not necessarily because the KBO is starting in an hour. You're up because you're dealing with a group that just doesn't seem to get it, especially in light of this. I think people would accept the fighting and the bickering and the acrimony if this was a 4 or 5 year deal for the future CBA. This is literally about getting back on the field in 2020, and the lines have been so blurred and the circles have become so concentric they can't see the forest, through the trees.
So, I guess timeline it for me. Deal has to be done by when? When's the strike? When's the stroke of midnight here?
Well, I just it depends on which side you're talking to, but I think that the agreement or the commissioner saying, boys, we're going, and it's 48 games, and we're done negotiating because we don't feel you're negotiating. We wanted to play more games, albeit at a reduced rate on your salary, but we would like to play more games. And if we can't agree to that and you're stuck on 100% of your salary, and they have the right to do that, then we're going to play 48 games. I think within the next 72 hours we should have an answer to that. I really do.
Huh. And then what are the odds that some bold-faced name players who might have an agent in Scott Boras say we're not coming because we're concerned about the health? Then, look, I think if there are legitimate concerns about the health, I think that they're going to be excused and get paid and get service time. I just look at some of the parts of the proposals, and again, when it is literally about the dollar, I understand both sides of the argument. But I think with regards to health and safety, I think it's short-sighted to suggest that any organization would put their employees, baseball players, at any real perceived risk. I think every attempt will be made to make sure the risks are limited. But that is a prerogative, and again, because it's baseball, nothing like that would surprise me. Nothing. That's what we've been conditioned to in this game. And I know you of course are familiar with the way it works. It's never peaceful. It's just not something that's ever smooth. It's and I hope it doesn't happen this way because unlike '94, Karl, with you being on the front lines of reporting this, you don't have the feel-good edition of the Sports Center to go back to and do. You don't have that feel-good. You don't have the feel-good. We
don't have Pooh Richardson on the court. We don't have Sparky looking in the mirror. We don't have any of that.
Give me your favorite Kilborn story, Karl. Give me your favorite killer story. Do you have one? Come on.
Golly. As I told you, probably 3 weeks into the Kilborn experience.
Yes.
It went from experiment to experience. But 3 weeks in, our buddy Steve Anderson, who was in charge of SportsCenter at that time, I knocked on the door. I said, Steve, I don't get it. I'm not feeling it. The feel-good thing, I don't get any of this. And to his great credit, he said, Karl, please, be patient. You're doing great. You're riding shotgun with a guy who we believe is going to develop, and he did. And I was wrong in my initial judgment. Like, I don't get any of this stuff. You know, the uncle who is behind the shed waiting to tie some boys' ice skates. Here are the Penguins Rangers highlights. But, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean?
And then he starts talking about Shatner, and then it was Kismet, right? Then you got it.
Shatner. Everything was Pooh Richardson. Every basketball highlight had a Pooh reference in it, even when Pooh wasn't involved in the game.
Oh, my God, Karl. I mean,
he's the best.
Oh,
he's the best.
My word. And then did he call you Sparky just from the beginning? Like, did he walk in the door as a newbie and call everyone Sparky, or he had some humility when he walked in the door? He was a little bit humble when he walked in the door.
Wow, that's a legitimate question. If
Thank
he
you,
were, it washed off real quick. But yeah, I mean, everybody became Sparky. That was, and then that sort of spread through the newsroom. I mean, that was the reference everybody used in regards to everybody.
I know when I arrived in '96, people were calling me Spark, and I'm like, why am I being called Spark? Because he referred to everyone as Sparky. And you know, I had Killer here on the latest anniversary of ESPN. I lose track how many years it's been. I
saw that. It was beautiful. I'm glad to see. I saw that. And
he came on for a full hour, and he mixed. And it was a feel good. And he brought on. We made martinis. He made martinis, even though I think the ice wasn't to his liking or something. But he fought through it. He fought through it. Karl,
he's always been he's a gamer, which is what we love about him.
He's a gamer. Well, you are too. Bless you for being in the middle of all this, and I hope we get some resolution, man. Because what an opportunity this would be, and it would be some.
No kidding. No kidding.
Take care, you and your family. Best to you, bud.
Hang in there, buddy. Be good.
Same
Thanks,
to you. It's Karl Ravech, everyone. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.